Have you ever felt how the love that someone felt for you began to fade between your fingers as if it were morning fog? That disturbing feeling when you perceive that something has changed, but you cannot point out exactly what it is. One day, the look of that special person shone when you saw you. Now his eyes seemed distant, as if they observed through you towards an invisible horizon. Stay with me until the end, because today we will unravel the signals that reveal when love is disappearing, and you will discover not only how to identify them, but also how to face this reality with wisdom and dignity. What you will learn today could change forever your way of understanding human relationships. Love, that feeling so valued and at the same time misunderstood. Many perceive it as a permanent state, a definitive conquest, but reality shows us a much more fluid and changing nature. As Carl Jung said, the renowned psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, the encounter of two personalities is like the contact between two chemicals. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This transformation does not always evolve in the direction we expect. Love, far from being a final destination, is a constant trip, a river that flows, changing its course over time. Contemporary culture has sold us the illusion of eternal and immutable love, fed by romantic films and songs that promise a forever that rarely exists in the way we imagine. This disconnection between expectation and reality creates deep suffering when we face the transitory nature of feelings. If you are asking you why they no longer look at you as before, why the conversations have become superficial, or why you feel a distance that grows day by day, you are not alone. Millions of people around the world experience this painful transformation, feeling that something beautiful escapes in their hands without being able to retain it. Have you noticed how the atmosphere changes when someone who used to love you begins to distance themselves emotionally? It is as if the air became denser, the heaviest words and the most deafening silences. There is an ancient Oriental parable that perfectly illustrates this phenomenon. Let me share it with you. In a remote mountain town, a traveler lived who had traveled vast territories in search of wisdom. During his journeys, he met a young woman who fell deeply in love. For the first time in his life, the traveler decided to settle, building a small cabin where both lived moments of immense happiness. However, with the passage of the stations, he noticed subtle changes in his beloved. The laugh that previously sprouted spontaneously at its stories now seemed forced. The looks that used to look for him now avoided finding his eyes. The shared plans became increasingly scarce. Tormented by uncertainty, the traveler decided to look for advice at the top of the mountain, where it was said that an old monk known for his extraordinary understanding of the human heart. After an arduous ascent, he found the wise sitting in meditation in front of a small bonfire. "Venerable teacher," said the traveler, leaning, "I have come because I feel that my partner's love is fading, and I don't know how to recover it. What can I do?" The old man, without opening his eyes, replied, "Show me how you hold the fire in your hands." Confused, the traveler replied, "That is impossible. I would burn me." "Exactly," the monk nodded, finally opening his eyes. "Love, like fire, cannot be possessed or content by force. If you try to cling to him when he decides to move, you will only get hurt. But observe carefully and recognize the signs of your departure, which will allow you to prepare and honor your passage through your life." This parable illustrates a fundamental truth. Love is not a possession, but an energy that flows, and when it begins to retire, it shows unequivocal signals that we must learn to recognize, not to manipulate or reverse them, but to understand and accept the natural process they are reflecting. The first signal, and perhaps the most painful, is the withdrawal of the presence. I do not mean only physical absence, but to that absence that feels even when the person is next to you. As Jung described, loneliness does not come from having zero people around you, but of being unable to communicate what is vitally important for you. This withdrawal is subtly manifested at the beginning. You may notice that deep conversations have been replaced by superficial exchanges on everyday matters. You may perceive that your attention no longer focuses on yourself when you speak, as if your thoughts were constantly in another place. Do you remember when you shared an idea and your eyes illuminated with interest? When a simple anecdote of your day caused sincere questions that showed how much your inner world cared? The person who actively listened now to mechanically nods while checking his phone, who used to remember the small details of your stories, now seems to forget even important conversations. Imagine Maria and Eduardo, a couple who had been together for 5 years. At first, Eduardo arrived from work and shared every detail of his day with Maria, who listened to him fascinated. They dedicated hours to talk about their dreams, fears, and discoveries. Gradually, those conversations were shortened. Eduardo began to respond with monosyllables when Maria shared her experiences. "I missed you today" became automatic greetings. The emotional presence that had characterized its relationship was disappearing until, even if they were physically together, they felt like strangers sharing a space. This presence withdrawal is usually accompanied by a decrease in curiosity towards your world. The person who previously asked about your thoughts, your days, or your dreams now seems selfless. The questions become mechanical if they are asked. Jung said that the genuine interest in the other is the principle of true love. When that interest begins to fade, we are witnessing one of the first signs of love that is withdrawn. Modern psychology confirms this phenomenon. Studies on interpersonal relationships have shown that shared attention, that state in which two people focused on each other create a common psychological space, is one of the first elements that disappear when love vanishes. If you felt, before there was a unique world created between you two, you now perceive that inhabit parallel realities that are barely touched. The second revealing signal appears when the loved one begins to transform into someone different in front of your eyes. It is not that he has changed physically, but that his emotional essence, the energy he projects towards you, has suffered a fundamental alteration. It is as if you were in front of a stranger who lives in the body of who you loved. The gestures of affection that previously arose naturally now seem calculated or worse, mandatory. The "I love you" sound hollow, devoid of the warmth that characterized them. In Jung's words, what you deny submits, what you accept transforms you. Many times we refuse to see this transformation, clinging to the image we had of the person instead of accepting who he is now. This denial only prolongs suffering and prevents us from adapting to the new reality. The transformation is manifested in everyday aspects that might seem trivial, but that, together, form a significant pattern. Perhaps who used to send you spontaneous messages to share a thought or an image that reminded you of you, now only communicates for practical needs. The little gestures of affection, a caress when passing, an accomplice smile, an unexpected compliment, are gradually extinguished, replaced by a formal courtesy that feels like an invisible wall. He considers the case of Roberto and Anna. For years, Roberto surprised Anna with small details. A flower collected along the way, a note hidden in his book, his favorite dessert after a difficult day. Anna noticed that these gestures gradually disappear. At first, he justified them by attributing them to Roberto's stress or tiredness. However, he observed that he still had those gestures of spontaneous love with friends and family, only not with her anymore. It was not that Roberto had lost his ability to show affection, but that love for Anna had changed his form. This change is also reflected in the way in which the person reacts to your successes and failures. When someone loves you deeply, your joys are his joys and your sadness personally affect him. Jung called this mystical participation, that almost primitive connection that makes us vibrate in tune with being loved. When love begins to fade, this emotional tune weakens. Your achievements are received with educated congratulations instead of genuine enthusiasm. Your difficulties receive rational advice instead of felt empathy. The look is perhaps the most subtle and at the same time powerful indicator of this transformation. The eyes that previously illuminated when they see you now seem turned off or absent. Neuroscience has confirmed that the pupil is involuntarily dilated when we see something or someone that produces pleasure or interest. This automatic response cannot be pretended and constitutes one of the most honest signals of the emotional state. If you have noticed that the look of your loved one is no longer illuminated in your presence, you are witnessing a significant change in your emotional connection with you. Why does this happen? Jungian psychology offers us a valuable perspective. Jung argued that we go through natural cycles of individuation throughout our life. These processes imply the integration of different aspects of our personality, including our relationship with others. Sometimes a relationship that was essential in a certain stage of our personal development ceases to resonate with whom we have become or with whom we are in the process of being. As Jung explained in his writings, everything that irritates us from others can lead us to understand ourselves. Relationships work as mirrors that show us aspects of ourselves that we need to integrate. When this process of reflection and growth is completed, sometimes the relationship loses its evolutionary purpose. It does not mean that the shared time has been a mistake or a loss, but that it fulfilled its function in our psychological development. Returning to the parable of the traveler, what happened after his encounter with the wise of the mountain? Baffled by the old man's words, the traveler remained silent, contemplating the danceful flames in front of them. Finally, he gathered value to ask, "If what you say is true, and I can't recover your love, how should I act? Pain is consuming me." Inside, the monk picked up a handful of sand and dropped it slowly among his fingers. "Look at this sand," he said. "If I close my fist with force trying to retain it, most escapes between my fingers, and the one that hurts my skin. But if I open my hand completely, everything goes immediately. However, if I keep my hand slightly curved like a sheet that welcomes the rain, I can sustain it for longer, honoring its temporal nature." This is perhaps the most valuable advice when we face the loss of love. Neither to cling desperately, nor detach ourselves completely, but to find that intermediate position that honors as much as what it is now. But how to achieve it specifically? Acceptance constitutes the first fundamental step before these signs. Recognizing that love has changed does not mean surrender or stop assessing the relationship, but opening to a deeper understanding of its evolutionary nature. Jung said that we cannot change anything until we accept it, and this truth is especially powerful when we face the transformation of love, accepting to abandon denial and control attempts. Many people, perceiving these distancing signals, react, intensifying their efforts to recover what they had before. Paradoxically, this pressure usually accelerates emotional distancing. The person who feels pressured to love as before experiencing the relationship as an obligation, not as a free choice, which only increases their desire to get away. The practice of conscious observation represents a healthier alternative. Observe without judging or trying the situation immediately. Ask yourself, what is really happening among us? How has our connection evolved? What emotional needs are no longer satisfied? This observation does not seek to assign guilt, but to understand the process as a whole. Honest communication, although painful, is equally crucial. Expressing what you observe without accusations or demands can open a space for authenticity. Instead of saying, "You don't love me as before," what sounds to accusation, you can share, "I have noticed changes in our way of relating, and I would like to understand what is happening between us." This approach invites a joint exploration instead of a defensive confrontation. The psychologist Esther Perel, recognized for her work on intimate relationships, suggests that many times love is not lost, but the particular way in which we experienced it. Using his words, love is not a fixed state, but a continuous practice. This implies that in some cases, what we perceive as a loss of love can be an invitation to find new ways of connecting, abandoning patterns that no longer serve both parties. Daniel and Sophia, a couple with 12 years of relationship, crossed this experience. Sophia began to notice the classic distancing signals in Daniel. Less shared time, superficial conversations, absence of emotional intimacy. Instead of panicking or launching accusations, he decided to observe the employer for a few weeks. Then, at a quiet moment, he shared his observations without judgment. "I have noticed that our way of relating has changed. I feel you more distant, and I wonder what is really happening among us." This opening created space for Daniel to express what he had been experiencing. Not a total heartbreak, but an exhaustion with the rigid roles they had established over the years. The initial conversation, although uncomfortable, opened the door to a period of rediscovery where both could question their expectations and explore new ways of connecting. Not all stories follow this path, of course. Sometimes the transformation of love means that the relationship in its current form has come to its natural end. Even then, conscious acceptance and honest communication can facilitate a more dignified and less traumatic transition. As Jung explained, even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness. The word happy would lose its meaning if it was not balanced by sadness. The psychologist Judith Vioost, in her influential work, Necessary Losses, argues that all life is marked by a series of inevitable detachments that, although painful, are essential for our growth. The love that transforms or retires can be one of these necessary losses, an experience that, if we consciously crossed it, allows us to evolve towards more authentic versions of ourselves. The cultivation of emotional autonomy emerges as a fundamental resource in this process. For a long time, our culture has perpetuated the myth that we need another person to be complete. This belief generates a dependency that makes any separation extremely painful. Jung questioned this idea by stating that the meeting with itself is the meeting with the other person. In other words, the true encounter with another is only possible when we have developed a healthy relationship with ourselves. To cultivate this autonomy, it is vital to reconnect with aspects of our identity that perhaps we had neglected during the relationship. Relist forgotten passions, strengthen friendly links, rediscover personal growth spaces. It is not about distracted by pain, but to remember that our full existence does not depend exclusively on the romantic presence of another person. Conscious gratitude represents another powerful practice. Even when love becomes painfully, we can choose to focus on what this relationship has contributed to us. The lessons learned, the moments of genuine connection, shared growth, all these elements remain as gifts regardless of how the relationship evolves. As Jung suggested, what resonates in you is what remains, the rest is echo. Isabel experienced this when her 7-year relationship with Matteo began to show the unequivocal signs of love that is transformed. Instead of clinging to recriminations or fantasies of what could be, he dedicated time every day to recognize something that thanked his shared history. This simple act allowed him to keep his heart open as he sailed the painful transition, honoring both the lived and the present. Reality. There is an important nuance that we must consider: the difference between love that is transformed and toxic dynamics. Sometimes what we perceive as loss of love can actually be part of a manipulative pattern. In relationships where there is emotional abuse, it is common for distancing to be used as a form of control, alternating periods of coldness with moments of intense connection to keep the other in constant uncertainty. Jung called these complex power patterns and warned about their destructive nature. If you perceive that distancing is accompanied by constant criticism, subtle humiliations, control of your actions, or emotional manipulation, what you are experiencing might not be a natural transformation of love, but an abusive dynamic that requires professional attention. External validation is crucial at the moment. Sharing your experiences with trusted friends, family, or a therapist can help you distinguish between a natural evolution of feelings and a harmful dynamic. As Jung said, knowledge rests not only in truth, but also in error, suggesting that even our wrong perceptions contain valuable information if we know how to interpret it. And what happened to our traveler after his conversation with the wise? The parable continues. Upon returning to the village, the traveler found his beloved packing his belongings. Seeing him, she looked down, unable to hold visual contact. "You leave," he said. "It wasn't a question." "Sorry," she replied. "I don't feel the same anymore. I have tried to recover it, but I can't force what no longer exists." Instead of pleading or clinging, the traveler remembered the words of the old man. With the heart hurt, but the clear mind, he replied, "Thank you for honesty and for all we share. Time with you has been a gift that I will always carry." Surprised by this answer, she looked up. "Are you not angry?" "I'm sad," he admitted. But anger would only be an attempt to control what should be free. The love we share was real, and that nobody can take it off, although their form has changed. This response perfectly illustrates the wisdom that Carl Jung tried to convey in his work on human relationships. Authentic love includes freedom, even the freedom to stop loving. When we learn to release without resentment, we honor as much what it was as what it is now. But how to rebuild us after recognizing these signals? Jung proposed that every crisis simultaneously represents a danger and an opportunity. When someone's love is transformed, we face the challenge of also transforming ourselves, not to recover the lost but to discover new dimensions of our ability to love and be. The reconstruction process begins with honest duel. Allow us to feel the sadness, confusion, and emptiness that accompany this loss fully. The denial of these emotions only prolongs suffering. Jung observed that denial does not release, acceptance, yes, suggesting that only by completely going through pain can emerge from a new state of understanding. The practice of compassionate detachment represents the next step. It is not about becoming cold or indifferent, but of recognizing that we cannot control the feelings of another person. This detachment does not deny love, but transforms it into a force that deeply respects the autonomy of the other. As Jung expressed, where love is, there is no willingness to power, and where is the power, love is missing. Personal rediscovery constitutes another fundamental pillar. Many times during a relationship, we unconsciously delegate certain aspects of our personality to the other, creating a kind of shared identity. When that relationship is transformed, we have the opportunity to claim those parts of ourselves that we had yielded. What passions did you leave in the background? What friends did you neglect? What personal dreams did you postpone? This period can become a time of deep reconnection with your essence. Laura crossed this process when her partner of a decade began to show the signs of love that is withdrawn. Initially devastated, he acknowledged that he had abandoned his passion for painting, convincing that he had no time. The transformation of its relationship created a painful but necessary space to rediscover this essential part of itself. Today, 3 years later, he has not only rebuilt his emotional life, but has developed an artistic career that he would never have imagined. The transcendence of the ego perhaps represents the deepest learning when we face the transformation of love. Jung spoke of the individual process as the path to the integration of all aspects of our personality, including our shadows and wounds. Paradoxically, this deeply personal process connects us more authentically with others, as it frees us from unreal expectations and unconscious projections. When someone stops loving us, often our first reaction arises from the injured ego. How can I stop love? What did I do wrong? These questions, although natural, arise from a limited understanding of love as something that is won or deserves. The broader perspective recognizes that love, like all living energy, flows according to their own nature, not according to our desires or expectations. Does this mean passively resigning? Absolutely not. It means understanding that true power does not reside in controlling the feelings of the other, but in how we choose to respond to reality as it is presented. As Jung pointed out, I am not what happens to me, I am what I choose to be. The traveler's parable concludes in a revealing way. Months after his beloved, the traveler returned to the mountain to thank the old monk on his wisdom. He found it in the same place, feeding the same bonfire. Your advice helped me face loss with dignity, said the traveler, but there is something that I still do not understand. Why does love have to end? Why can't it stay the same? The old man smiled and pointed the bonfire. Look at the fire. Is it the same as you saw last time? No, the traveler replied. The flames are new, although the fire seems the same. This is love, explained the monk. It never remains the same. This metaphor captures the essence of Jungian philosophy about love and loss. Love does not really disappear. It is transformed. Sometimes that transformation means that it is no longer expressed as a romantic relationship, but the energy itself, the capacity of deep connection, remains as part of our shared humanity. Jung expressed this beautifully when he wrote, "The encounter of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, Both are transformed. This transformation is inevitable and natural. Resist it only prolongs suffering. Accepting it opens to new possibilities for growth and understanding. The deepest wisdom against the signs of love that is withdrawn is this: true love was never a possession, but a witness of our connection capacity. What we value in the other is not something external to us, but a reflection of qualities that already exist inside us. As Jung pointed out, everything that irritates us from others can lead us to understand ourselves. This perspective does not minimize the pain of loss, but places it in a broader context. If the love that someone felt for you has transformed, you have not lost your ability to be loved, or your ability to love. You have experienced a particular form of love that has fulfilled its natural cycle, leaving you not diminished, but enriched by experience. Fernando, a 50-year-old man, shared his experience after recognizing the signs of love that retired in his 22-year marriage. At first, I felt that I had failed, that I had lost everything valuable in my life. Over time, I understood that nothing of the truly important was lost. The moments of genuine connection, the lessons learned, the shared growth, all that remains as part of who I am now. And that understanding has allowed me, who was my wife, although we no longer share the same path. This transformation of perception represents the true trip of the hero in Jungian psychology, not the external conquest, but internal integration. Recognizing the signs of love that is withdrawn is painful, but it is also an invitation to a deeper knowledge of ourselves and the nature of love. In the end, perhaps the question is not, how do I recover your love, but how do I honor what was and hug what it is now? This perspective allows us to keep the heart open even in the face of loss, recognizing that love, in its deepest essence, never disappears completely, but transforms into new understandings, new connection capabilities, new dimensions of our humanity. As Jung said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to be." Faced with the signs of love that is withdrawn, we always have the ability to choose how we respond, not from fear or attachment, but from the deep understanding that every significant human encounter, regardless of their duration, transforms us in ways that last far beyond the relationship itself. The traveler of our parable, transformed from his experience, did not return to the village to stay, nor continued his trip bitter. Instead, he established a small garden on the hillside, a place where he welcomed other confused travelers, sharing not only the wisdom of the elderly monk, but also his own experience of loss and renewal. Thus, the love that seemed to have lost found a new form of expression, enriching not only their life, but that of all those who crossed their path. And you, who have come here seeking to understand the signs of love that is withdrawn, you may discover that this knowledge not only helps you navigate your own losses with more dignity, but also allows you to accompany others on their way, transforming your personal experience into a shared wisdom that illuminates the path for many more. The two signs that we have explored, the withdrawal of the presence and transformation of the loved one, are not definitive sentences, but invitations to a deeper understanding of the nature of human love. Recognizing them clearly, accepting them with compassion and responding to them with wisdom can convert a potentially devastating experience into a portal towards a new level of self, knowledge and authenticity in all your future relationships. As Carl Jung's wisdom reminds us, we are not passive victims of our circumstances, but active creators of the meaning we extract from them. When someone's love transforms, we also have the opportunity to transform, not losing but gaining a richer and more nuanced understanding of what it means to be fully human in a world of temporal and eternal connections.